Hello, everybody. Welcome to this Future Leaders Forum Knowledge Share. I am delighted to be with you. My name is Amy Baker from The Pie, and I am joined today by an amazing panel of, I wanted to say veterans in my description, but then I thought, no, I prefer seasoned commentators, significant stakeholders in our sector. So we have Jane Dancaster. Welcome, Jane. She is the Managing Director of Wimbledon School of English here in the UK.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for calling me seasoned.
We have Samuel Ratrack, CEO of Bonnard.
Hello, everybody.
And we have Claudio Tatarino, CEO of Linguista, a media touristic group in Switzerland.
Good afternoon, everybody.
So thanks for joining. We are going to be trying to tackle the difficult issue of sustainability. Where do we go from here? It's been a difficult year. We're going to be trying to unpick some of the challenges and opportunities for the sector. And I wanted to start by talking about online English learning, which I know some people don't think is a panacea. It certainly isn't a panacea, but it is an opportunity which some schools and institutions have had to pivot to as a sort of needs-must situation. And Jane, I wanted to come to you first to talk to you about online English provision and how this has worked for Wimbledon and how you've managed to sell it, whether you've been using agents or working direct. Maybe you could just talk us through what's been the experience in your case.
Thank you, Amy. So I'm sure, as many of you know, Wimbledon School of English was offering live online synchronous teaching before the pandemic hit. So we'd been running our medical courses for several years because doctors are very busy people and they're placed throughout the world. So we were able to pivot all our courses online quite easily. Our teachers were trained and experienced and so on. So we consider the online now to be an essential part of our product offering, and we will continue to offer the online. It hasn't brought in a huge income. I have to say that the margins are still far too narrow, but we've got about 60 students at the moment online, and they're all new bookings. They're not students who were with us in the pandemic, so they are new bookings that we've managed to recruit. But we've noticed, of course, that it is very, very different from the face-to-face offering that we have in terms of the marketing, in terms of the clientele, and in terms of the agent engagement, as you say. So the clients are a very, very, very varied group. We've had 47 different nationalities in our online classes, from new markets such as the Philippines, Nepal, Afghanistan, so India, Pakistan, so non-EFL destinations, countries that can't travel to the UK, maybe the visa issues and so on. So it's opening up those areas where people can't come to the UK anyway. And in terms of the agents, some of our agents have felt that it's not a product for them, which is fair enough. But other agents have really embraced it and tried really, really hard and actually brought in a large number of new students, which is great. So, you know, this is up to the agents, but it's not like the traditional destination package. So it's difficult for many agents to sell. And also the marketplace is a completely different marketplace, as you all know. It's to do with technology. It's the big players. It's EF. It's Rosetta Stone. It's Google. You know, we're up against those. And although we believe absolutely that in the language sector, our product is better and different. You know, it's live, it's group, it's international, all these other exciting things. It's very hard to get that across to the client. But in terms of what's good for the client, I mean, the online complements beautifully the face-to-face offering. So it can't replicate the full immersion product of traveling to another country and experiencing that. But it can prepare you for that. You can experience the school, you can meet the staff, you can experience the quality before you come and then come afterwards. Or afterwards, it can consolidate what you've already learned in that school with those great teachers.
Great. And would you say then, I mean, what proportion of those bookings are coming directly to you of those online learners?
So we have a higher percentage of direct bookings than normal, than in our normal face-to-face classes. But we are still getting a lot of clients through the agents as well. It's easier in a way for the agents than for the directs to sell the online. So, for example, with our taster courses that we do every week, that is via the agent. So the students need to be accessing an agent to access that kind of thing. Or again, I think that the students, they don't really understand what our kind of online product is. So again, the agent is vital to explain to them that it's very different from asynchronous exercises or just a video call. So although there are more directs, yes, this is true. I think it's partly because not so many of our agents are engaged in selling the product.
Okay, and Claudio, I'd like to hear from you on the online learning proposition. Do you have clients across your offices in Switzerland who are interested in this? I mean, is it unique to certain destinations? Do you think it would just be interesting to get your point on this?
It's definitely not an agent product. It is, well, not for us. I think, as Jane said, and I'm very happy for her if she gets new markets. I think for people that can't travel and for countries that have a visa issue, it's fantastic. It's a good alternative to go online and study, but it's not an agent's product because there is no margin on it. It's difficult to sell. In our country, for example, we have a lot of possibilities to have online courses within the country. And, so I don't think, for us, we do sell a little bit of it because people are locked up at home, so they can't leave. So that it's an opportunity now, but it will disappear, after vaccinations that people want to go. And I think for us and for mature markets, it's not really, something that we can build on. And as Jane said, it's mainly a direct market thing.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, there's some building work going on, which is why I have to keep muting myself in between. So, I mean, Jane, trying to sort of harness the positive, there is some pivoting which has been positive for you as a school. We obviously do want to talk about the sustainability in general of the core product, which we all know so well, which is the experiential experience abroad. I know that this Futures Leaders Group, it's a great initiative to have put this amazing event on and created so much collaboration. I know that you are discussing as a school, a group of concerned schools, some sort of unified approach towards limiting discounting. And this is born out of a concern around the commoditization of the product and an effort to make sure everyone can make money. And I think that's what it really comes down to. That's what I really want to sort of dig into here. How can everyone make more money in with the core product? And I just, I think I might come to Samuel at this point to talk to you about your observations of the sector at large. So you're a great sort of observer of the sector as to why you think people have been making less money historically, which is why COVID was just so brutal on everyone's business bottom line.
Well, thank you. And again, good to see so many familiar faces or people and names in the chat as well. I will probably take this from the angle of the previous question of the online, as well as the sort of consolidation speed up of the industry thanks to COVID. Even though the COVID times and online delivery is not the best news for all of us, on the other hand, it has proven a very strong long-term fundamentals of this industry, that on-site delivery was, is, and will be wanted, will be on demand, and we might have a positive future in these regards. And when it comes to the industry itself, well, I think the conversation is moving from making as many students and student weeks to how we all gonna make a profit. So from volume to profit, from revenues to profits. And I have had the chance to talk to many of the school chains that are in this room today, or agents, bigger agents that are in the room today. And it seems like the conversation is maturing towards being at the same table and talking together, both schools and agents, how we all gonna make profit, not necessarily as many students as possible. In last 6 years, 14 to 19, we have had the same 11 million student weeks. So the industry is not increasing the volume of business, and most likely it will not in the future. What can change is less supply. It can change more profits, more consolidation. About 20% of businesses went to exit, either to termination or to submission as a merger and acquisition in these last 6 years. Most likely, COVID will do the even more rapid consolidation that we will see probably a little bit less demand after COVID. All in all, I think that we will be, as any maturing sector, moving to a conversation on profits, not necessarily volume. And then the producers and distributors will need to have an honest conversation on how this is achievable for both sides. I know it's probably unimaginable because the conversations in between schools and agents last 20 years has been mostly about, how far the commissions can go or have to. But I have to say that when I have conversation with schools or agents, they both have a very genuine interest to make more profits. And so I think there needs to be a platform or some kind of a forum, which probably this is a beginning of this kind of conversation, how we all, or both sides of the equation, can make more money. The agents have been here and will be here, and probably will have even stronger position of power after COVID. This type of a service or product is not distributable directly as a tourism product. It's not a commodity. So there is no way to omit agents from this conversation. And they still represent the same 55 to 75% of bookings, depends on the market. But it should not be like we heard 2 or 3 weeks ago in America, that the two sides do not need to consider themselves as competitors, but probably as a contenders, and find a way how everybody will make some money. It's sort of a COVID approach. We see the landlords talking to tenants and finding a way, or schools and agents on cancellations and vouchers. So we will need to find some other new way as an industry on a way to profits, not volume.
Thank you, Samuel. So, I mean, let me come to Claudio on this point. I'm interested in exploring your thoughts on an approach from certain, a group of schools to say, let's limit the discounting that happens. From an agency perspective, would you think that's a good thing, or do you think agencies might be just tempted to work with the schools that don't limit discounting? I mean, we talked in our previous conversation about the costs of recruitment getting higher. So maybe you could explain why you think the cost of recruitment for you are getting higher, and how you would respond to a sort of desire to cap the cost of an ELT course, I guess. Or actually not cap, cement at the bottom, the cost of an ELT course.
I think there is different points here. There is one, we have to sort of know what sustainability means for all of us. For one, it means, to get profit, to get bigger, and to sort of survive. And then you have business models. It's a model that you just discount. So now for a school, I mean, I'm the one that's not discounting, and I'm not a fan of discounting. But, we have in our country, the top 5 language providers, they sell 80% of the market. So it would be, so stupid if we would discount. But look, I mean, I've been on panels, I've been on the Alto panel, I've been on the International House World Organization panel, I've talked to the YAL board, and it's always about these platforms that do discount. At the end, the schools, 50, 60, 70%, maybe 80% or 90 even percent, they say, okay, yes, we agree. But there will still be schools that just say, okay, it's an economical thing. If a platform wants to discount, it's their business model. So we will never get where we want to come with no discounting, because there will always be these models, and organizations and associations are in a difficult position to sort of go, because they need market share. It's about market share. Do you want a market share? You don't want it? At what price? At what price do you want to grow? At what price you want to grow your company to then sell the company? And so we're all in so many different things that we can't sort of really say, okay, this might not be sustainable, but it might be sustainable for the company to survive. Look, we have to get back to the value of our product. Like, how much is it worth to study? And if we discount, and if we have an English language course or a Spanish language course, and you get it for free, and you have people that shop around, we're talking about education. I think that is something that has to get back to our minds. Also selling it as an agent in the responsibility, and also as a school. But at the end, we're all entrepreneurs. We need to market that we get money, that we earn money. And, we're in a new working world as well. For example, when I have staff and I tell them, you can actually define your own salary by selling things, where we have more margin. And I mean, it's a new system also of engaging people and people to decide what they sell and being part of the company. So it all goes to another direction. And then what do I need? I need margins. What do I need? I need money to market also these schools. I mean, yes, we were talking about brochures. Now we're talking about marketing contribution. And as you said, Amy, that's a tremendous cost for us. And the only winner, basically, I mean, it's not the schools, it's not the agents, it's Google. So at the end, we put so much money, all of us. And I mean, for a school, if you want to work, if you're going to have students from 40 countries, you just have to sort of see, okay, what's that worth? How much money do I want to put in a country? Do I give it to the agencies and they market it, or do I go there myself with whatever? I think we have to be open for new models, agents and schools. And it is really difficult for small agencies. I mean, also for us big ones, because we have a lot of costs. We have a lot of agencies, we have a lot of staff. But still, for the small ones, it's almost impossible that they can brand themselves in Google. So they have to be getting to a niche. So their only surviving thing is, they are whatever, on juniors, on groups, on a certain language. But for us, as a big player, we have to sort of see, okay, we need to be good in the niches. We need to have and represent a quality bunch of schools. But still, if I only sell 5 schools, what do the other 150 schools do in London, for example? And I think we have to sort of see that this is going to be really expensive if we do that, because we need a lot of money just to be in the market, and also for schools to be represented by someone. And I think it's a question of how much money do I spend without having the discounting thing in a mature market. But there's some markets that doesn't work without discounting, and you can say as a school, okay, I don't work with these markets. Is that sustainable? I don't know. It's a difficult question. And also exclusivity, is that a good thing? Is it not? What does that mean for a school? How tight are you to things like that? It's difficult. I think we have to sit together, everyone, Alto, Felka, English UK, and it's the association that actually have a big impact, also on these things, on how to bring back the value of it, and of a course, and of a whole thing. How easy is it to get an English UK or a Quality English or whatever all these brands are? What do they mean for us in the industry? Is it important? Does the student know about it? No, they don't. Do they care about it? I don't think so. I mean, it's about us. It's about us forming the industry, agencies, associations, and schools.
No, I mean, that's a really interesting question. Is it important? What is important to students, and how do you bring back the value? And I just wanted to flag up actually at this point that I know Dennis Akar, hi Dennis, is listening, and he's posted in the Q&A to say that discounts are essential to attract clients in a commercial marketplace. So I guess he's speaking about his experience in Turkey. So like you say, Claudio, different markets will require different approaches. But going back to that central point, how do you bring back value to the marketplace? If discounting from the agency's perspective has to happen, and I'm going to bring this back to you, Jane, how do you still impart to your consumer clients the value of spending more to go to an English UK school, or the value of spending more? Because Jane, you made a really interesting point to me that sometimes you can pay less than a cup of coffee on the price per hour for ELT. So that's the biggest question for the wider sector, isn't it? How do we move away from that so that people are ultimately happy to invest more for the life-changing experience of studying abroad? So Jane, back to you on that. What do you think we should do on this? If we are accepting that sometimes agencies, as Claudia was saying, in some respects, they feel like they need to have the sort of commercial edge of a discount.
But there's discounts and discounts, Amy. So, I mean, I think this all comes back to the issue of commoditization, which we've all been talking about since March, since the pandemic happened. And as Claudia said, back to the value of our product and what we're offering, which is education, which is a life-changing experience, which is often a single lifetime purchase, which isn't something that you can just go into a shop and choose between two different brands, which requires a lot of thought and a lot of investment. And I think we've lost sight of that, and we've moved away from that. So if we can get that message through to people again, and that has to come from the schools and the agents working together. So if there's so many strands that have come up in what Claudio and Sam have been saying, but if we look at the discounting, first of all, there's discounting and there's discounting, and we all appreciate that certain markets are markets where it's important to have a discount. The culture in that market wants to have a discount, and there are other markets where it's not. But I think the discounting war, which is what we got into in the UK, I'm not speaking about outside the UK, but particularly London before COVID hit, which was discounts. This is not commission. I'm not talking about commission. I'm talking about discounts offered by the schools of 40%, 50%. And this was anecdotally started by one of the groups that's no longer in existence, a few years ago, in order to squeeze others out of the market. And that's a race to the bottom. That is a lose situation for everybody. It's no good for the school. It's no good for the agent. Their margins are cut. It's no good for the student, because you can't provide a quality product if you're discounting like that. And I think the realization, just from talking to agents and schools over the last few months, the big groups, the small schools, we've all realized that can't continue. So we hope that moving forward, we will all agree that kind of huge discounting, that race for discounting, that can't continue. But we acknowledge, of course, that some discounting might be important for certain things and so on, but limited discounting, and that as well, if we get away from that discounting race to the bottom, we hope will encourage everybody to get back to basics, get back to the roots of what we do, which is this precious product, this unique product. It's this language plus experience. I mean, COVID has also brought that home to all of us. It's a 360-degree product. It's hospitality, it's tourism, it's education. It's a combination of all those things, and that is a unique and wonderful experience. And so then if we move on to commission, which has also just been raised, obviously, of course, as schools, we complain about commission, and as agents say they want more commission. But I think something that COVID has really done is it's brought us all together. We're all talking to each other. So the schools and the agents, we're talking to each other. I feel much closer to many of my agents now. We're in this together. We're working together. And if we sit down and we look together at what our margins are and what our costs are, so we each understand each other and we understand where we're coming from in this. So we're a team, we're a partnership, we share things. I think if we understand each other's costs, both sides need to be happy with the Commission. And I think that's achievable now. I think we are much more open with each other. And that is really a positive thing for the future.
And back to you, Claudio. I mean, one of the big advantages of working with an agent is an agent can really help swerve a student to a quality school. And as you say, maybe they don't know what a barometer of quality school is. Do you think students post-COVID will be more likely to want to use the advice of an agency in terms of making that investment? Do you think you can help sort of move the dial on student sentiment in terms of how much to pay for a good quality course?
I think so, yes. Also because, a lot of students, they are now sort of stuck with a lot of vouchers and credit notes, and, so it's actually, it depends a little bit on the country. I mean, imagine you get a voucher and there is 2 years you can't go back and cash it because you can't go to Australia, for example, or you can't go to New Zealand. So these are things that we sort of, as an agent, we sort of say, okay, can we just sort of put it as a credit note and, and not a personal voucher? And I think the service that we have for these type of people, they, it's a word to mouth thing, but still, people will forget about that quite soon. It will be normal, and it will go back to internet, and they would check. And I think it's more, a lot of people have lost a lot of money with their flights, and a lot of hassles with these things. I think that's why they maybe would go back to an agent, but that's not our main business. We're not selling flights, we're selling education, we're selling language courses. I think we do have a chance, yes, to sort of have that also, to give them the guarantee, but then we need to guarantee also together with the schools that we can say, you can cancel up to 10 days before you arrive. I think we have to be really flexible in these things, that we can sort of have and tell the students, hey, you're safe. Not just you as a person, because there might be a vaccine, but it is a chance for us and as an industry also to change these cancellation policies and to sort of say, hey, for us, if you book with an agent, or it's you're safe. Also, your money is safe. I think that is a message also that will count more and more. But still, it will be the recruitment for us, for us recruiting students will still be, very, very hard. Also because, I mean, imagine, I mean, no company can survive with a whole year without an income. And also, the 60 to 65% of our bookings are word to mouth people, but no one's been for a year. So, who's recommending us? So we have to rebuild this whole system. And I'm not talking about the whole part, but, a significant part of the people that come back, they recommend you. And I think we don't have, we forget about that. That's a very important issue as well. So I think, there will be people coming back to agencies also because they want to feel safe, they want to be sure, also because they don't know, can I go to the country? Is there a quarantine? How long is the quarantine? Can I go to school? And they want that information in their own language. They want to understand. And I think, yes, for the, time and for the next couple of years, I think so. But then, we'll go back to where we're now, or where we were, a year before.
But would you agree with Jane that there does seem to be a more collegial approach between the school and the agency around how can we all make enough money here? Would you agree with that, Claudio, from your perspective? Do you think there is a more collegial partnership attitude towards how much a school is charging, how much they're giving the agency for their role in the process?
At the moment, you mean?
Yeah.
I think, as Jane said, I got closer to a lot of schools that I've been also, seeing them for 20 minutes once a year at a workshop. I think it was good. Still, I mean, cash is king. I mean, it's the way it is. We're all in, we're all in that business. So we all have to sort of maintain and see that, yes, we do get closer and there is okay, but at the end, people are, especially also schools, they have to, if they want to survive, and I understand that, and that's the same for me as well. But at the end, the one who's there is the student, and to find the way, for a student and a school and an agency to find the right way is more challenging than it was before, I think, at the moment. Also because of these things, there's a lot of pressure on a lot of people. I mean, when it all started, I mean, there was a lot of fights and a lot of, I don't know if you will still be existing in 3 months, and I don't know if you're closing, and it was not a nice sort of atmosphere, a lot of fighting. Give me the money back, otherwise I will never work with you, and all these sort of things. I think it has sort of, it's a bit relaxed now, but I I don't know if it is. So I think schools have sort of also had to sort of change their cancellation policies, also not just because of the agencies, but also reputation. You may be part of an association, or it's an important agent, or whatever. And I mean, it's all new for us. This happened to all of us like that. So not everyone was sort of, no one was prepared, and it's difficult to find a right or wrong here. And it's not like, yeah, but you're big and you've got a lot of money and you're small, you whatever. It's not about big and small here. And I think it's okay now, but the first months were quite hard. I think this agency school relationship was sort of, I mean, everyone was holding on to what they had. I think that was, so it's just about how you can get, or how far you want to get, and how much can you do as a school, as a chain, as an agent. And there's not just one recipe. I mean, we've paid back things for our students from schools that we didn't get a refund. So people would say, well, you're crazy, why do you do that? But it has a strategical thing, to it, because it is a provider that's very important to us. And sometimes, yes, you have insurances, and then you've got all the different countries with their policies, and the government has to, whatever, and then you sort of stuck to things. I think it's been a really difficult time, also because you had to talk through, through what, Skype and Zoom, and you couldn't just go for a beer and talk about it, and whatever, and then find a solution the longer the night goes, these other things. But I think it's okay now, but I think we sort of have to. We need that platform to stick our heads together to see, why do we need it? We don't. No one wants to take advantage of it. It's a very, very difficult situation. I think 99% of us, we all want to save this industry, and it's not about getting rich out of after the pandemic and war. But yes, there is still it's also a fight about it's not in all the countries you get governments that pay your salaries or that pay your rents, or so it is a fight. It's a fight at the end, also about survival.
But is there something in particular you'd like to see, such as more flexible refund policies? Are there certain things like that that you think would help your business in the future?
I think that is a very, very important part, flexible cancellation policies. And, also schools have to talk to their accommodation providers and the host families, and everyone is in this, it's not about, if you can do it, do it. And I think if we have to sort of do that all together, if it is something that you can't do, then you can't. But I think that will help also, because what we are missing now is the bookings for next year. No one books. We only have people that have sort of transferred their stays from last year to this year. But where are all the new ones? They don't book. Why don't they book? Because they're not sure. Can I go there? Is there a vaccination? Yes. Or maybe 30% of them, or maybe 20, maybe even 5% of them would book if they would know, okay, it's safe. I don't have to do anything and don't have to pay anything until 10 days before. I think it's an important thing. And if not, it's worth a try, you know? I mean, it is, we have to get this year going because no one can stay on hold for another 6 months.
Yeah, thank you. Samuel, I'd like to bring you back in here. Just, you are a specialist in looking at data and also looking at what the future might bring in terms of trends. So what do you think is sort of most likely scenario for the next 12 months? Both, and I'm interested both in terms of sort of market performance, in terms of student numbers, but also the way agencies and schools are working together. What do you foresee? And I also want to say, we've got another 20 minutes. Do ask questions if you'd like to, but thank you. Over to you, Samuel, meanwhile.
I'll perhaps start from the latter, so that I'm in a context with Jane and Claudia on the relationships between schools and agents and discounting. As both Jane and were talking about this topic, I was thinking about perhaps we as a sector need to look at not at the consequence, but as for the cause of why there is such a strong discounting, especially last 3 to 4 years. And I think it has, if we take out or neutralize the cost, then there will be less of a need to address the consequence. I think there are two major reasons why we are entering this heavy discounting times. The first one is that the market is quite diluted. You know, we are living in 11 million student weeks sector with about 3,064 English language centers that accept internationally mobile English learners, 16,000 agencies, and the regulation is not strong enough to limit new entrants in schools or new entrants in agents. And even more, we need to fight for the customer more because the states are shorter. So for 11 million student weeks, we need more customers, so we have more costs, all of us. So the market is diluted by more schools, easy to come, more agents, easy to enter the market, and more customers that we need for same volume of business. So the sector is constantly diluted, even though we don't have a natural growth of overall student numbers and student weeks, pardon me. So that's one of the reasons, and we need to look at it honestly, how to address it, because this is forcing us to make discounts. The other reason, I think, is that you know that we work with other sectors, so I can compare it with academic programs like high schools or universities or student housing and tourism that we are present. And what I'm missing in ELT as such is actually a factor of financing. I know it's difficult to say it in these times, but basically a mature sector has, businesses in mature sector have 3 streams of revenue or credit: income, so revenues, loans or debt, and investments. And most of the businesses in our sector only have 1 stream of income, which is revenues. So they are desperately fighting for this, even on the expense of discounting. But our sector doesn't have healthy access to loans or healthy access to investment. It's a heavily underinvested sector. The traditional loan-to-value ratio for business, healthy sector business is about 50%. So 50% of your credit you can source from loans or investments. Where could we be in COVID times if we have access to loans and investments? So I think these 2 reasons, that market is diluted, not regulated, and that we are not consolidated, documented enough to have access to banks, loans, and investors. We talk to investors. They don't want to invest because they don't see operational data, HR data, then net operational income, margins, etc. It's on an industry. We have mobility data, but not more. So they are, and some of those schools that are here, they know that we work for their investors, and they were desperate to get the data to either be able to close the transaction, because for them it's crucial. So if these two things are addressed, then we will have less reason for discounting, I think, because we will not be so.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I've got another question. I mean, you're talking about a sort of overall market size of 11 million weeks, but do you believe it's possible to grow that by trying to pivot, like in the way that Jane's managed to sort of get a new seam of students who want to study online for medical English? Do you think it's possible to grow that? Or do you think that 11 million student weeks market size is not likely to grow?
I don't want to play somebody with a crystal ball. I will just say some scenarios that happen in other industries in this type of crisis, that either GFC or 9/11, or we documented last 70 years of education sector. And the fact is that in and after every economic recession, that pandemic will turn to economic recession. And we can share a graph with the audience later on. The number of students increased rapidly. So when you look at the last 70 years, each recession brought more students. So that's one fact. Second, many of the students, this type of product is age limited. So if people want to study abroad, be it short-term language or academic programs, they have limited window of opportunity. So this will culminate the demand. So most likely 2021, 2022 will be naturally stronger. Then I don't think we are able to deliver or increase more than 11 million student weeks from the same cohort we have. We either develop a new product like Philippines that now have more student weeks than Malta. So they created a product for A1, A2, B1 type of courses, and they basically they didn't take market share from Japan or Korea or Taiwan. They created new customer that would normally not go abroad to study English. So that type of a customer, basically what happened after GFC in 2009 in airline industry, that besides Lufthansa, you had Germanwings, that besides Iberia, you had Vueling, so basically new type of a customer, budget customer. Suddenly you have them more, and Ryanair is the most used airline, and overcoming other airlines by revenue and profit. So I think that's a chance to bring new type of a customer, but to have more than 11 million student weeks from adults and juniors that we have now, there are no signs at the market that this will happen. We need to bring a new customer. Something that happened 25 years ago, in 90s, that the market went from working with HR department, that the UK schools work with HR departments in Paris, and but not agents. And suddenly they reveal agents. Agents brought the product to every Joe customer, and suddenly there was a new customer, not only the corporate English learner. So I think that is a chance for sure. Online, it seems to be that we have made research over more than 200 agencies in Brazil, Russia, China, on an appetite of promote online. And as Claudia said, not only the agencies are not equipped and therefore willing to enter these waters to promote online courses, so they don't want to do it. There is a huge resilience of agents to promote it, but also families and students, they rather defer than go online. And if they go online, they do it 3 times cheaper in Chelyabinsk rather than doing it online in Vancouver. So there is a sort of a perception that it's a good news in a way, because We know when mobility is not so restricted, so pandemic will convert to a economic recession or a normal mobility times, we will most likely see at least 70 to 80% of the pre-COVID levels of demand, because people want to go abroad, study abroad, and be on site. That's probably, when you look at, I can make one last example. I don't want to talk too long. Student housing. We monitor 7,000 buildings in student housing. They are all full. The least occupancy we see is 60%, but most of them, they were 97 to 98% full before COVID, and they are 93 to 97% now, in some cases 85. And students are there, even though university is online. Why? Because the study destination is not only about classroom, but the experience. So as soon as this is enabled to short-term students like language students, or it makes sense for them to self-isolate for 2 weeks and stay, I'm really confident that they will come back.
Okay, thanks. Jane, let's come back to you at this point. So that is good news that the market will clearly rebound, but while we're still talking about this sort of fundamental issue of how agents and schools can work together to be more healthy, what would you like to see from your side? I mean, one thing I wanted to ask is the idea of agencies limiting their school partners or schools limiting their agency partners. Do you think that would be something that we might see going ahead, so people can focus on fewer but more productive relationships? What do you think? And what would you like to see?
Well, that's nothing new, Amy. I mean, ever since I've been in the business, agents have asked us if they can have exclusivity. And in fact, I think exclusivity for agents was much more common in 1990 than it is now, to be honest, because, as a school, it's a very dangerous thing to put all our eggs in one basket in one country. If you have exclusivity with someone and by doing so you upset everybody else in that country, then something happens to that partner, and then suddenly you can't get back into the market. And I'm sure the agents feel the same with the schools. We understand that agents want to offer a diverse portfolio, so they want budget schools, they want quality schools, they want all these different things. So it's quite hard for either side, I think, to impose restrictions. I mean, that has to come from the relationship between each agent and each school. So each partnership is its own model, and I think that has to be discussed, and we can't just start imposing restrictions on numbers. But it certainly is a crowded marketplace, as Samuel's been saying. I mean, there for many years there have been no barriers to entry on the school side, and I think in many countries on the agent side either. And although there are regulations on both sides, so there are agency associations, you have British Council agents, you have ICEF agents, EALC agents, Quality English agents, we have English UK, each country has its own accreditation body. The student doesn't necessarily appreciate that, and the student is the client, and they're the money, and they have the money, they're the paying customer. So even in the UK, where we think we're fairly highly regulated now, there are still, I think, according to Sam's last stats, there are more un-British Council accredited English language schools than there are accredited ones. So the client, the difficulty is getting that across to the client. So you wouldn't go to a doctor who wasn't a qualified doctor, but you will send your child anywhere, and you just look at the price, and I find that astonishing. So together with the agent and the schools, we really need to get that message across to the client that the starting point for regulation is accreditation on both sides. So only work with an accredited agent, only work with an accredited school, and therefore you have these minimum legal guarantees for your safety, your security, as well, of course, as your English language learning. In the UK, as you know, Amy, when government tried to regulate further through the visa system, and they were trying to get rid of these so-called visa factories, etc., it didn't really help. There are still these but there are still these dodgy organizations offering courses in the UK, And in fact, the ones who suffered were us, the quality organisations, who had suffered more and more regulation and lost clients as a result.
But is that something you'd like to see, a change in regulation, for example, so that students could come to a private English language school and then work part-time?
I would love students to be able to work part-time. That's a different issue.
That's a different issue. I guess that's not to do with how you work with agencies, but that is something, another way we can talk about trying to...
That's government regulation. Amy, all government regulation in the UK stops all these things happening. So UK government, as you know, is terrified of immigration and as a political idea. So for us, government doesn't help. So, for example, you can still open up a centre for children aged 5 years old to be sent from abroad with no regulation whatsoever in the UK. Government, for a starting point for government would be to say, you are only legally allowed to operate if you're British Council accredited, but they won't. They bring in another body, or they do something separate, or
I guess while we're talking about the health and longevity of the quality sector, that's something which all institutions in their own home countries could advocate for. But going back to this point of agency and school partnerships, so Claudio quite articulately put his case for more flexible refund policies. What is it from your side you'd like to see from the agent partners you'd like to work with? And for the health, so that we can all save money on the processing as well. So how do you think both sides can save money while working together?
Well, I think Claudio knows that in the UK, I think everybody's now got flexible refund policies. We introduced these pretty quickly after COVID because the client isn't going to book if they don't think they're going to get their money back. So we've got our Wimbledon Book with Confidence campaign. We're all pretty flexible on that. I think for the schools, an important factor in terms of the cash flow, the movement of money, is where possible for the fees to be paid by the first day in school. That is a dream for many schools. I appreciate there might be reasons in certain situations where that's not possible, but if you buy a holiday, you have to pay for your holiday before you go. But if you buy a language course, you don't necessarily. And a lot of time is spent chasing money. A huge amount of time is spent chasing money. So that would be our ask.
Okay, that's really interesting. Claudio, let's bring you back. We've only got sort of 4 or 5 minutes left, and I know you probably all have lots of meetings all day to talk about how you can work together. What are your thoughts on better partnership going forward beyond and saving costs? So I guess more on the same. You've spoken about the partnership. What about saving costs in the way that you can work with your partner schools?
For me, there is 2 things. One thing is I'm thinking of an accreditation system of agents and schools within the countries that do actually, that have a high standard, that helps us not to work with schools that then suddenly, don't exist anymore, and the other way around. Also for schools that work with agencies that don't exist anymore. Because I think here we have to, as Samuel said, there's not been, it's very easy to be an agent. It's very easy to be a school. In some countries less, and in some countries more. But I think that's something that has to be pushed with all the associations worldwide. Between the schools and the agencies, I think it's we know that we're all in the same boat, and I think the discussion about commission, there's discounting, as Jane said, which is not good, but still schools allow platforms to discount. They don't tell platforms, get my school off, because they say it's a different business model. So it's difficult, you're in those 2 ways. I prefer, that the commission deals of schools, it's in every school's sort of marketing model. They can do whatever they want. I don't say you can only pay 25% because it is, you know, you're in a business. If you need a certain market, and maybe it is for a year or it's for 2 years, you know, yes, you can actually say, okay, we don't want to give more than whatever 40% or 50 or whatever. I don't think that's the way to go. You know, I think it's is it sustainable to give big commissions only? No, it's not. But you know, you have to see it as a whole thing. I think that's very difficult to sort of say that's the right thing to do for a school, because the school might does that for a certain reason, you know. I mean, because they want a certain market and then grow. I think for me and for a lot of agencies, it's important that you know, it you know, it doesn't matter if an agent is big or small, but that you know, the concerns of an agent, because we are recruiting that, and the word to mouth of a student that's not happy is for us crucial. So we sort of have to sort of find a way also that the schools understand that more. And you know, it's a thing about trust. It's very difficult, and that's why I say, you know, I think accreditation is a really good point, but still, you know, you know what, if the accreditation is so easy to achieve, then it doesn't make sense, you know. So I think it's a mix of everything. At the end, you know, if a school only chooses to work with 5 agencies, what happens with the small agencies? You know, variety is also a big thing. Variety is important for sustainability. Small agencies, big agencies, chains, and so there should be a place for everyone, but everyone's got different interests, and that is very, very challenging in an international industry. And I think we can only do it with accreditation and with the value of us as a company, of our people that work for us, and the value of the programs and the products, and that we sell education. I think that's the way to go.
Great, thank you. Samuel, I'm going to ask for a final word from you, and then we're going to end with Jane as we started with Jane. But sort of final word from you, Samuel, on what you think would be a sort of best case scenario for how the industry moves forward from here.
You mean in terms of a relationship between schools and agents?
Yeah.
Well,
I know you're not an expert, but as a sort of global business specialist.
I think we have a chance to talk to both parties at the table, independently or even together, and we are in a good neutral position. And I think that this is a historic opportunity for the sector to reset the rules. That's one. The other is that I think both sides feel the same, that there needs to be a constructive conversation. What seems to be, I mean, both sides, what seems to be obvious is that this cannot be solved on an individual basis, that one chain will talk to one big agent and they agree. That needs to be a, you know, industry conversation, or at least like concerned leaders, you know, that represents the biggest proportion of the business, with a critical mass of relevant agents, you know, and then this way they can go somewhere. I think that the conversation should be about you know, how both sides can make more profit. I don't think somebody in the chat wrote that it's not only about discounting, it's about commissions, it's marketing contributions. And I see some kind of a light at the end of the tunnel with I will say it shortly, the marketing budget. You know, that the agent has 2 roles: the administer the sale or create the sale. And I think that the part of the creating the sale, creating the lead, you know, which basically the school is giving half of the commission for, is something that you know, needs to be a subject of conversation in between the school and the agent. Maybe working closer how to spend that part of a commission together. And this is what other industries do. That the producer, so school, is working much closer with the distributor on how that proportion of reward is spent. Not to dictate it, but to work closely together, doing marketing activities more determined way. Vietnam is sort of doing it on the ELT market, that schools work with less agents or agents work with less schools. The average Turkish agent is working with about 120 schools. Average Vietnamese agent is working with about 4 schools per destination. But with those 4 schools, they work really closely. They plan the radio campaign, video clips, visa application processing, and they have much better success, and both part of equation make more money this way. So maybe that's a way forward.
Great, thank you. It's really interesting. And Jane, final thoughts from you then.
So really, to reiterate what Samuel said, yeah, this is the time to reset the rules. So final thoughts. I think the dialogue is better between schools and agents, as I said before. I think we finally addressed 2 of the big fat elephants in the room, which is the commission and the discounting. We've actually started talking about it. And so try not to fall back into the old bad habits. Keep talking to each other, but also I think it's time to reaffirm the product. So we are selling a potentially life-changing experience, not a commodity that you can pick off the supermarket shelves. And I think we've really got to work together to get that message across, that what we sell is wonderful. And we really realise that now. I think COVID has brought that home to all of us, that the whole experience cannot be replicated online. It can be complemented online, but it can't be replicated. So that should bring us even more customers. Now they realise that.
Thank you so much. I know we have to end it there. So thanks everyone for joining us, and enjoy the rest of the sessions. Thank you so much. Thank you, Samuel, Claudio, and Jane.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.